So I'm laying out my first plank on the Beaver Canoe using a Spiling batten. And there's really a couple of ways to do this. One is you put your batten down, you take a compass, you make an arch at each point. Then when you lay it down on your plywood, you put your same compass, same setting on two legs of that arch, and where they cross will be this point. That's great, but then your Spiling batten has all these stray marks all over it. And what I did, I just took a piece of 1/4 inch plywood because it flexes the same as the 1/4 inch plywood I'm going to use for the boat. And I used these little popsicle sticks that I cut to a point, and I hot melt glue them on at each landing for the planks. And then when I take this batten off, I have the layout lines for that plank. I will take that over here to my plywood that I've glued up. I laminated 2 sheets together, and the glue line will not show once I coat this whole thing once the boat's done. But I'm gonna lay out my batten on this and mark out those points, and then use a fairing batten to connect the points, draw a line, cut it out, bring it over to the boat. Now, this first plank lands straight down the keel. So there is no point over here, it's just the straight edge. So I'll line this up with the straight edge of the plywood, and that will be my straight edge. On the next plank, I'm gonna have 2 of these. Next plank is gonna have where it lands here and where it lands here and here. So, or actually here, my bad. The plank will be here. The next plank goes here. So there's gonna be a point pointing to the overlap, because remember, this plank overlaps. That's why you have 2 marks. So you're gonna have a point where it overlaps this plank, and you're gonna have a point here at the edge of this plank. This is your overlap for the next plank. This is where the plank lands. So this plank will come to the overlap of this one. So once I get this plank cut out and laid out, because maybe it doesn't look right, you might tweak it a little bit. So you don't want to just make a batten until you get your planks actually glued on. So we're going to cut this plank, glue it on, then we're going to put the fairing batten here. We're going to take popsicle sticks and we're going to glue them to this point and this point, because the next one will not have a straight edge. The next plank is where we start to curve on both sides of the plank. The first plank only curves on one side. Now I went ahead and clamped it all the way down, even though actually the first plank ends at station 3. So I put a popsicle stick pointing to this edge because that's actually where the plank ends, to remind me that's where it ends. I went ahead and clamped it all the way because I wanted to just see how the forms lined up. And now what we'll do, and I like these quick grips for this. I'm not a fan of quick grips for most woodworking, but for these boats, you're not putting a lot of stress. All you're doing is just holding a little thin sheet of plywood. Hold on, I gotta use the hand I'm holding the phone with. All right, my fairing batten is gonna go everywhere on me. Hold on, I'm holding the phone and doing this at the same time. All right, so we got our fairing batten off. I'm going to carefully drag it over here and hope that none of these come off. And we're gonna go to our plywood. And we're gonna lay this out. And I am going to put the middle, number 8, I'm gonna land it on the glue line for the plywood. I'm gonna try And we'll see if this works. I'm gonna try to make my glue line all in the middle. And then when I'm done, I can put a rib to cover that glue line, because quite frankly, I'm not real happy with the way the glue line looks. I've done better, but I have to keep moving, and I can't buy a whole lot more plywood. And this is gonna take 2 sheets on most of these, but on the very last ones, I'm actually gonna have to add a little bit on this end, because it's going to be a little bit longer than 16-foot planks. So now we have our Spiling batten here, and you see the points. Very easy to cut a curved line ending here and then coming around and ending here. So once we make those marks, I'm just going to use this. I'm sorry, I should have set this up. We're going to take a fairing batten, which would actually be a square, but we'll just show you. I like to use a square fairing batten so it bends equally. But you see our fairing batten is going to make that line, then we'll take a pencil and draw it off. On this first plank, the straight edge is our first edge. On the other planks, they're all going to be curved. And we're going to see how many we can get out of this piece of plywood. And so there it is. That's to me the easiest way to spile a plank. Lay it out, cut it. Then what I'll do is cut this with a jigsaw to the outside of the line, and then I'll use a little block plane on my outer curves, and when I get to the ones with inner curves, I'll use a spoke shave to shave it down to the line, or I'll take it over here to this sander and I can sand it to the line. I usually like to just take a sharp shave and do it. Then we'll bring our plank here, and we're gonna lay it here, and then we're gonna flip it over and check, and it should be symmetrical if I did everything right. Once we check it, then we'll take the plank back to the plywood, and we'll cut an equally matching piece that will go on this side. So I'm gonna build this boat. Each boom, 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 boom. Just keep going, right, left, right, left. Once we get done, we'll pull it off the form. So sorry if this video was a little shaky, because I'm doing this as I hold the phone. And but I hope you understand what I'm doing. Again, your planks land here for this edge. This line is where your next plank overlaps the first plank. And I'll do a video, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna bevel that first plank so that they overlap and glue up evenly. So there we go, we're getting her started.